Your server just got 100 times more traffic. Do you immediately go out and buy faster CPUs? Or do you replace an O of n squared algorithm with an O of n log n algorithm? One single change could make your application dramatically faster. And, well, that's exactly why algorithms matter. And welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unpack the invisible performance layer that dictates how all modern software scales.
Okay, so let's dive into that massive engineering dilemma I just mentioned. Traffic spikes, 100x. It is so tempting to just throw expensive, faster hardware at the problem, right? Just rent more servers. But fixing the underlying math could completely transform your system's capability without spending a single dime on new CPUs.
To really get to the bottom of this, we're pulling directly from the absolute definitive text on the subject, Corman's Introduction to Algorithms. We're using this to show you exactly why professional developers don't just see algorithms as academic theory. They treat them as a foundational technology, just like hardware and networking.
Here's a quick look at our blueprint for today. We'll be moving from the hidden performance layer all the way up to real-world system architecture.
Section 1, the invisible performance layer, which is really software's hidden engine.
You see, an algorithm is basically a precise computational procedure that transforms an input into an output. And as the source brilliantly points out here, hardware gets faster every year, sure, but a bad algorithm, it scales badly forever. Think about it. If computers were infinitely fast, you could use literally any correct method, but they aren't. Performance is usually limited by your algorithm choice, not your CPU speed.
Section 2, asymptotic complexity and growth. Let's talk about measuring the future. So, the crucial question is, how do we actually measure efficiency? Before we get lost in the weeds, we're going to strip away the intimidating math. Ignore the constants, we just want to focus purely on the functions of growth. Big O gives us the upper bound, the absolute worst-case scenario. Theta gives us a tight bound, or the expected time. And omega gives us the lower bound, the best case. We really only care about how runtime grows as the input gets bigger and bigger.
Now what's fascinating here is the visual contrast. O of log n grows incredibly slowly. O of n grows steadily. But O of n squared, it absolutely explodes. This is why just testing your code on a small dataset is such a common trap. You literally don't see the explosion until the input scales. Take Quicksort, for example. It averages O of n log n. But its worst case is actually O of n squared, so you always have to be prepared for that growth.
Moving to Section 3, core data structures. These are your materials of construction. Because algorithms don't operate in a vacuum, right? They operate on data structures, arrays, linked lists, stacks, queues, trees, graphs, and there is no perfect structure. Every single choice is a strict engineering trade-off. You're constantly balancing memory usage, read times, and write times based entirely on what your specific app needs to do.
Let's actually ground this with a real code example to show you what I mean. Looking at the left, we've got a hash table dictionary in Python. If you want to find user number 2, you just call users.getTo. That takes an average of O of 1. Constant time, it's near instant, no matter if you have 10 users or 10 million. On the right, a linear loop over an array. To find user 2, it has to check elements one by one. The runtime grows linearly. It's the exact same end result, but vastly different scalability.
Okay, Section 4, Designing and Proving Algorithms. Time to look at the builder's blueprints. Most algorithms aren't just conjured out of thin air. They follow some really well-established patterns. First up is divide and conquer. Useful algorithms like merge sort follow this elegant rule of 3. You divide the problem into smaller pieces, you conquer them by solving them recursively, and then you merge those results to fix the massive original problem.
We also have these other incredible strategies. Dynamic programming is this brilliant time-memory trade-off. Instead of recomputing the same things over and over, you just store the previous answers and look them up, avoiding duplicated exponential work. Greedy algorithms, they just make the best local decision in the moment, which sometimes magically produces the global optimum, like in Huffman coding. An amortized analysis reminds us that 1,000 operations might average out to O of 1, even if one single spike is expensive. Great algorithms avoid unnecessary work before they optimize the computation.
But hey, how do we actually know these work before pushing them to production? We use a loop invariant. It's a condition that stays true before, during, and after every single loop iteration. We use a 3-step process, initialization, maintenance, and termination, to mathematically guarantee that the algorithm is correct from start to finish.
Finally, Section 5, Real-World Algorithmic Infrastructure. Let's check out the digital skyline. I really want to emphasize that these algorithms are not abstract academic exercises meant to torture computer science students. They are the literal infrastructure powering your life. Graph algorithms route the internet traffic. B-trees accelerate huge database queries because they minimize slow disk reading and writing. Number theory enables RSA, SSL, and all your secure online payments. They are the invisible pipes of the digital age.
And this brings us to a huge takeaway. Senior engineers don't sit around memorizing hundreds of lines of code. No way! They look at business problems and map them to these known algorithmic patterns. And if a problem is fundamentally difficult, like the traveling salesman problem, which is NP hard without a fast exact solution, they don't panic. They just use heuristics and approximations. Sometimes the smartest algorithm doesn't find the perfect answer, it just finds a really good answer fast enough.
Ultimately, relying entirely on CPUs is a losing battle. Yes, hardware and modern multi-core CPUs make your software run faster, but performance now depends on work, the total computation, and span, the longest dependency chain. Lower span means better parallelization. Hardware makes it fast, but algorithms and how you structure that data make it scalable.
So, I want to leave you with this thought. The next time your system hits its absolute limit and that inevitable bottleneck shows up, are you going to just rent more servers? Or are you going to restructure your foundation and fix the math? The choice you make is going to define the future of your application. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and we'll see you next time.